And it's a bit of I think, a scary process for people that haven't been through it. There are all these steps, but I wanted to kind of give a very general overview of what that looks like. So you'll do your research, work with your co-authors, and write your paper. You'll also then sort of think about where that paper fits. Is there a journal that has the right topic? And so you'll select your journal for submission, but you don't just submit your article that you've written. You're also going to do things like write a cover letter, which is sort of like your direct communication to the editor, telling them why they should consider your paper. And you'll do things like recommend experts in the field who would be good at analyzing your paper to determine its quality. So your paper then goes to an editor. They'll do high-level overview, decide if it's an appropriate fit for the journal. If so, they'll pass it on to expert reviewers on the topic. They'll really give detailed analysis, and it goes back to the editor. Depending on what they say, you may have to do revisions, or it may be accepted, and then go through and finally get published. So a couple of just other thoughts that I have on publishing is it's, I think, a really exciting way to develop skills that are not technical. A lot of storytelling, graphic design, things like that. And I guess my last little bit of advice is to really try to keep an open mind when it comes to feedback. People put so much work into their research, and I think sometimes it can be hard to hear criticism, but when this process is done well and in a healthy way, it's really a great learning opportunity. I mean, you're really going to get quality feedback when it's done well, quality feedback from world experts. So try to keep an open mind and take this opportunity to learn from them as well. Thanks.
Thank you. So the next person is Emily, on your PI's tenure and how it affects you.
Hello, everybody. As you said, I'm Emily Barber. I'm a second-year master's student at MECI. And we're going to talk a little bit about the different types of faculties. So I have them all ranked here on the left. You can see everywhere from lecturer to professor emeritus. Most of these, with the exception of lecturer, are what we call tenured track, or hoping to one day get tenure. And then the top three, the bolded ones, typically are tenured faculty. Now, what does this mean? So you can see on the right here that as you get older, you're more likely to grow and develop into these different levels. So a lot of professors start as assistant professor. They go to associate professor and then get professor status. And then a lot of times the university, if the professor did a lot of great things during their tenure, will honor them by giving them professor emeritus status. And that just means you no longer work here, but we're going to let you keep your title out of respect to you and what you were able to accomplish in this field. So what does this mean for you? So it can mean a lot of different things. Typically, people like being with tenured researchers because that means that there's a really low chance of them leaving. Tenure is basically the university saying, we're willing to keep you around barring anything extremely bad going on or if you want to leave. So they always have a job there. So typically they always stay there. And if you're trying to do a 2 or 6 year degree, you want to make sure that your professor is going to be there the whole time. So that's why a lot of people like tenured. But there's also some benefits to being with a younger professor, particularly an assistant professor. Particularly, they're still trying to set up their lab and what their research is going to be in. So you can have a lot to say, more so than you might with an established professor, about what direction they want to go to and how you can help develop that direction. So I definitely say, as my one piece of advice, just make sure that you know what direction you kind of want to go in. If you want to be a little more helpful in setting up a lab, or if you want to be a little more confident that your professor will be there, and then you can kind of from that be aware of that as you're looking with different labs to work with.
Thank you so much. And the next person we have is Super on self-advocating.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Amazing. Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Sopro. I'm a 50-year PhD candidate in chemical engineering. And today I'll just be giving you my 1 or 2 cents on self-advocating. And the simple way that I summarize it, just from the information I found online, is know yourself, know your needs, and know when and how to get what you need. And what does this mean? It means that as a grad student, you should learn how to understand what kind of opportunities do you need? What kind of conferences do you think you want to go to advance your career? What kind of collaborations do you really want to like get in your grad school, scholarships, awards, all these things. So for example, an next example here is this GradTrack program. I know that, this was a very great program that I get to work with students. So I reached out to my professor. I was like, hey, I wanted to do this, is it okay with you? And he was like, yeah, this is a great program. And this is just like one simple example of how there are lots of opportunities out there for you in grad school. You just have to learn how to find them and then maybe apply to them. And most often than not, you may need your professor's approval to do that. And the worst your professor can say most times is no, right? And then one final, before the final thing is also ensure that you keep your advisor updated. If you come into your PhD thinking that, hey, you want to do industry or you want to do academia, and then as your PhD progresses, your mind changes, make sure you let your professor know. Because if you don't, your professor might assume that, oh, what you wanted to do in your first year is pretty much the same thing. Then the final one is that if you want things to change, speak up, right? And then you want to try to make sure that you do that gracefully. So that's pretty much all I have to say about self-advocating. Back to you, Lexi.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And the next person, Osui. Sorry, did I pronounce that correctly? Organization and time management skills. Josue Rivera.
Sorry, I was muted this whole time.
Okay. Did I pronounce your name correct? I think
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry. Hey, everyone. My name is Josue Rivera. I'm a second-year PhD student in aerospace engineering. And today I want to talk about organization and time management skills. A lot of the times when you go into your PhD or your master's, right, you're going to have a lot more freedom than you ever had before when you compare it to like undergrad or wherever you're coming from, right? Usually during your undergrad, you pretty much are given a schedule and then you just follow the schedule until you graduate. During PhD, you have a lot more freedom. So that means that the success of your PhD or your master's depends highly on what you do with your time, right? So you kind of have to hold yourself accountable if you want to have certain amount of publications or certain amount of accomplishment by the end of it. A big part of it, not fully, but a big part of it is up to you on being able to achieve those things. So the other thing too is that you shouldn't stress about it. You should try to find a work-life balance, right? So yeah, there are some things that you want to be able to accomplish by the time you graduate, but at the same time, you also want to incorporate certain things of your hobbies, right? In particular, I like to watch Marvel movies. I like to watch movies in general. So I always take time to, go to the movie theaters. Here at Purdue on Mondays and Tuesdays, they have a $5 movie. So actually it's $5.50 now because of inflation, but yeah, it's still around $5, right? So you should try to incorporate those kind of things into your schedule. And also every now and then, make sure to list your priority, right? What are the things that you want to get done this semester? And, what are the things that you have to do? What are the things that you want to do? So kind of try to rank those things and then try to incorporate them into your schedule. So for example, like I said, I like to enjoy myself. I like entertainment. So I make sure that I always have some time in my schedule to be able to do those things. One of the things too is that in order to help manage your organization skills or your time management, you may want to create a schedule. Like the visual that I have there is, one example of what it could look like, but it's something that may not work for everyone, right? So for me in particular, I don't like to have to be very narrow where every 30 seconds, right? I mean, every 30 minutes, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I don't like that kind of things. So I try to make it a little bit broad, right? Where I said, oh, I have a 3-hour interval to work on homework, right? Or I have a 3-hour interval to work on research. So that kind of things gives me a lot of flexibility on how I decide to use my schedule. And I also like to use it more as a guide instead of a strict rule that I need to follow. And the other thing too, make sure to always plan ahead, right? If you want to, publish a paper by a certain deadline, right? Make sure that you have time to be able to work on that paper. If you want to take some time off, right? Try to plan ahead so that way you have that period off when you want to take it. Yeah.
Thank you. So for the next presentation, we have Juan Paz.
Yeah, thank you. Let's say,
Yeah.
hi everyone, my name is Juan. I'm a fourth-year PhD student in industrial engineering. And the topic I chose was handling rejection, which is actually, I think this topic is quite general in life. But when we put it like in the specific context of grad studies, we even can talk about many different experiences, right? So for example, one of the first things that I had to face was the rejection from one of the universities as an admission. And the whole point here is, and I wanted to bring up like this news of a PhD student that in her dissertation, he made this skill made of all different rejections just from papers and things like that. And the point is, in grad school especially, this is unavoidable. It's something that every grad student will face in one way or another. And for example, just as this student, I had to face some rejections in some papers that I have working on. And yeah, everyone faces, and the good thing, I'm not gonna lie, like I think that everyone that works on research takes this bad, at least at the beginning when you get it. I'm not gonna lie about it, but just know that you can always like turn it around and kind of take this like a growing opportunity, and you can like work again in your research, improve it. Usually you can get like really good feedback, even if it's not the more compassionate way to like the way that a reviewer can talk about your work. You can always like turn it around and make something better from it. And this is something that actually one of my advisors told me. Embrace rejection as part of your process, and as long as you put your heart into your work, you can always get something from it. That was something that my advisor told me. Like if you really put your heart there, you can always take your work and get something from it. That's like something that I was told, and I think that was really good to pass by. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And next person is Juan Verduzco, Building Community.
Hey, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Juan Verduzco. I'm a fifth year now, PhD candidate in materials engineering, and I'm going to talk to you for the next couple minutes on building community. So in this program, you probably heard a lot of choosing your advisor or making sure your research is what you want to do. But something else that you want to take into account when you go to grad school is that it's going to be hard, but it's going to be harder if you're alone. So when you go to grad school, you need to find community fast, because loneliness sets in very quickly and research can only fill so many hours of your day. So here I'm putting some ideas on things that you might want to do once you go to grad school. So most universities like to have students apply to them, like recruit students, but they also have programs on keeping them. They also want to keep the students that they recruit. So there's a lot of activities and clubs and organizations at the university level that you can take advantage of, where you can go meet people, meet some faculty. Sometimes there are some faculty that you can talk to, meet people that are in charge of the departments, and you can start building your own social network at your grad school level. Some other ideas could be cultural organizations. Here at Purdue, I know we have the Latino Cultural Center. I've been there a couple of times. There's cultural centers. There's also graduate student associations where all grad students meet and do usually social events, but sometimes they also do professional development. But it's mostly so that you can start networking with your cohort. And the last thing is talking to people in your classes. In a PhD, you usually don't take a lot of classes, so you want to take advantage of the classes that you do take to create some connections. So if you have the opportunity, you go to grad school and you're taking classes, talk to people in your classes, ask them out for coffee or to a study group, or just ask them for help on your homework or something. but that is some of the ways that I found that you can start building community at the grad school level. And those are my suggestions to you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And the next person is Fernando, applying to external fellowships.
Hi guys, my name is Fernando. I'm a second year PhD student in biomedical engineering, and today I will be talking about fellowships. So a fellowship is kind of like the way I think about it is like a scholarship for graduate school, but this is sort of like a 1-year thing where you receive funding either from the government or a private institution. And there's different ways you can get a fellowship. Purdue offers fellowships when you enter, but if you're not qualified for those internal fellowships, you can apply for fellowships outside the school. So this year myself, I applied for NSF, which is the National Science Foundation. There's other fellowships such as the Ford Fellowship, NIH Fellowship. So essentially they all require some sort of application. You talk about yourself and the research that you're planning to get involved with, not necessarily exactly the research that you will do, but some sort of sense of what you're doing. So something that I kind of helped me get really like to be ready and prepare for this process is that you need to be really disciplined, because like as some other people mentioned before, you have a lot of freedom, so it's hard to like allocate your time, especially for something that it's far away, because it's usually something that you want to start preparing like 3 or 4 months before the deadline. So you want to make sure that you're disciplined, you allocate your time, you build this work schedule so that you can work a little bit or do step by step, so that at the end it all adds up together. And then by creating this application, you also want to make sure that you receive feedback from your advisor, your family, close friends, because you want to make sure that this application is written for a broad audience, because usually there will be people from different disciplines that grade these applications. So you want to make sure that this is understandable for a wide variety of people. And also, I think something that is really hard is also to incorporate that feedback. You don't just want to get the feedback, but you also want to make sure that you use it to make your application better and not take it as something negative. So you have to be open to new ideas, like somebody mentioned before. And like I said, all these baby steps will be small progress to result in a full application at the end. And something that helped me a lot during my NSF application this year, because it can feel overwhelming to do all these different things and you don't really feel like you're making a lot of progress. It's good to celebrate small victories. So if you finish a draft, go celebrate, have fun, go do whatever makes you happy, and also enjoy the process, because there's a lot of things that you can learn from it. It helps you learn about your research. It helps you learn about yourself. It helps you understand where you come from and all the things you've done in the past and how it all led to this moment in time. And eventually you'll apply, submit your application, and you might get it, you might not get it. But if you don't get it, then look out for other opportunities. There's not only one fellowship that you can apply. So just be also open to other fellowships and doing the process again.
Thank you so much. And the next person, Nafisa, on graduate internships.
Hello. First I want to say I'm sorry if I sound weird. I'm super sick. But hi, I'm Nafisa. I went from a PhD to master's. I'm now a master's student in environmental and ecological engineering. And what sort of influenced that decision was my graduate internship. And so last spring I was already on the fence, trying to decide if I should stay in my PhD program or not because of some of the things that are happening in my lab, but that's a different presentation. And what helped me be certain of my decision to go from a PhD to a master's was actually the graduate internship that I just did. In undergrad, I only had research experience. I never got an internship. So I didn't really know what the industry was like. And so this summer I decided to go full industry, like you can see on those pictures. It was like kind of extreme. There's uniforms every day, steel toe boots, hard hats. You don't have to go to that length if you don't have industry experience, but that's what I wanted. And it was actually great because it showed me sort of the value of like the master's versus the PhD or the master's versus the bachelor's degree. I'm saying that because some companies will try to hire you out of graduate school. That's what this company tried to do, but it solidified, my experience solidified the fact that I wanted a master's. And so if you are like me and you did research in undergrad, and even if you're certain that you want to go into academia later, I'd still recommend doing an internship because it adds value no matter what, whether you want to go into academia, you get an insight of what the industry wants. If you eventually want to go into industry, then you'll have that experience. And so grad internships are something that you should definitely talk about with your future advisor, because some advisors don't like to have their grad students doing internships. So that's something you should definitely make clear with the people you're talking to if you're interested in that. And that's it.
Thank you so much. Next person, Ruben Lopez, on backup plans if grad school or summer research doesn't work out.
Hi, my name is Ruben Lopez. I'm a 6th-year candidate in engineering education. And today I'm going to talk about backup plans if grad school or summer research doesn't work out. It's very aligned with what Nafisa was talking about. So I want to start saying that grad school is not necessarily the only pathway and the immediate pathway. So in my experience, I finished chemical engineering in 2012 in Colombia, my country. And then I didn't know if I wanted to continue with grad school or work. I didn't know how was the experience, even though I had an internship, but I wasn't sure. So I prefer to go and start working, have some experience to know what I like more. So I work as a quality engineer in 2012. There, I find that I prefer to stay in academia and try to do more research type of things. So I go back to do a master's in chemical engineering in 2013 to 2015, but with a focus on biotechnology. After that, I realized that I didn't have too many opportunities to work in my country. So I started working as a science teacher 2 years in my country. And then during that time, I was thinking about, okay, should I go to PhD in chemical engineering or switch a little bit to something more related to education? At the end, I decided to go to engineering education. So in 2018 is when finally I decided to go to grad school, like 6 years later after I finished my undergrads. And it didn't affect me that much in my application process, since I tried to make a case. That's why my previous experience was important for what I'm doing. So what I did and what I want. So the advice in this case would be like, first, adulting is not that scary. Sometimes we go to grad school is because we want to stay in the safe environment of academia, and think that maybe working could be scary or something like that. It's not that bad. You will have more time, you will have more money, you will have many other benefits. And on the other side, professional experience help us to grow and develop skills, and many of those skills are very important to get jobs, to construct network, to also be successful in grad school. So you may go faster in some aspects of the grad school, different than doing research. Finally, be flexible and work with your options. You may have a lot of interest, but you don't need to do everything at the same time. So even if you maybe you want to do grad school, you want to do research, you want to publish, you want to do a PhD, you want to work in academia, you want to also have experience, professional experience. You may want to do many things, but you don't need to do everything at the beginning at the same time, like the next semester. You can start doing something and then plan in a long term what is going to be later. In my experience, for example, I always like to do research about mentoring, but I decided that that would be something that I'm planning for the future, not for my grad school. So I waited like these 3 years, 4 years. I'm going to go back with that research line maybe in 2 more years. But I still keep that idea in my mind. So try to plan in a long term. Don't see the things only immediately. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you to our awesome GradTrack mentors. A round of applause, virtual round of applause to them. So we'll take the Q&A session now. I think Janet would do that. Thank you.
Yeah, and there's nothing in the chat right now, but if anybody has questions, feel free to type them into the chat, or you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask any questions that you have. And one of the things that I appreciated about just the breadth of topics that was covered tonight, I hope it kind of gave some of you maybe some different perspectives of grad school, maybe some things you hadn't heard, and kind of those comments of the last couple mentors that spoke, that there's not necessarily one right path or one, like, these are the steps. It's not always A to B to C to D, right? You know, sometimes you go left to end up going right, and that's okay. Everybody's journey in the end usually looks a little bit different. So don't worry if you're sitting in a place that looks a little bit different than some of your friends or some of the peers that you're talking to. Just make sure that you're following what's interesting to you and what feels right to you and what doors are opening to you at this point in time. And just always keep looking for those additional doors to open, because there will be new doors that open that you can't even see yet. And as you walk down that path, you'll see those new doors, those new opportunities, and you'll have those chances. So, you know, do your best work now, you know, try hard, but also don't panic over everything. Just do the best you can, and things have a way of working out as you continue on. Do you have a question or a comment, Miriam?
Yeah, I do have a question. So actually kind of going along what you were just talking about and some other people mentioned, if we're potentially considering taking a year after graduation to become more well-read, I guess, in terms of research and just become a better applicant to then apply. First of all, like, how can we use that year, for example, to like maximize, you know, the gains and making a strong application? And secondly, like, how to deal with the feelings of like, maybe I'm just like not like, maybe I'm not like good enough right now to apply for PhD programs right after bachelor's degree.
Yeah, so I'll give you kind of my initial thoughts and then open this up to any of the mentors that want to comment. So starting with kind of your second question, right, of, you know, if you're not sure you're ready or you're not sure if you'd be competitive right now, there's nothing that prevents you from trying both. Right. And there's nothing that prevents you from applying to grad school at the same time that you're applying to different job opportunities or other types of opportunities that you might be looking at, and then see which offers come through. And you could be admitted into a grad program, but another offer comes up that you really want to try first, and you can decline that grad program and try that other offer. Or you may surprise yourself, and that grad program that you thought maybe you weren't going to be competitive for right now, you do get in, you get a good offer, and so that door opens and you go. So don't shut doors on yourself. You know, if it's something that you're thinking about, try both and see which doors kind of open up. One little piece of advice I'll give you too, when you're thinking about taking time off, or anybody here that might be taking time off before you go to grad school, think about those recommendation letters that you're going to need, and talk with some of your professors now to either potentially even write a draft letter for you now that you could potentially use in the future, or at least let them know that you want to take some time off, but you're thinking about grad school in the future, and make sure you stay in contact with them so that you can still get kind of a strong letter down the road. So those are two quick things I'll say. Let me turn it over. Any of the mentors want to give some advice or experience here?
I have one comment. So for me, my case was a little bit different, but I was a master's student when the pandemic happened, and I was considering applying right after I finished my master, right? But because of the pandemic, I was a little bit concerned about starting the PhD and not, getting the right education or being exposed and stuff like that. So what I ended up doing is that I extended my thesis for 1 year, and then I was only just like TAing and also doing my research. So if that's something that you can find, maybe like a similar option for you like that, where you can still stay in, in school, like do some research in school and stuff like that, that could also work for you. But, it depends on your scenario. Yeah.
Yeah, just kind of going off of what Dr. Beagle was saying. I mean, you have this question of, am I ready? I'd say let them decide, that they have admissions committees for these reasons. So if you don't know, someone else will, so that's always a good option. Also, I don't know, other mentors can maybe speak to this, but a lot of people I've talked to, a lot of mentors will give you, once you're able to start the program, they'll give you some time to read up. I mean, I don't think they expect you to be experts right out of the gate. And especially since as you read these literature, you have a lot of questions, and they're there to answer them. So you will have time once you get into grad school to kind of learn these things and become that expert in the field.
That's exactly right. Like, I transitioned from chemistry to chemical engineering. Like, they're going to pick people that they think can become an expert, not that already are an expert. So you definitely are going to have a lot of time in the program to learn, if you feel like, I mean, you don't have to go into it already being an expert. That is the point of the program.
I also want to piggyback on what Jonathan said. I'm in civil engineering, and I transitioned from, so in civil engineering, there's 9 concentrations. My research and undergrad was focused on hydrology, which is the one that works with water, but I really wanted to do structures. And like bridges and buildings, and everything that I did in the past was related to water and somewhat related to other things. But I just said, as Emily said, let them decide if I am not the right person to do structures. And I did, and I was accepted into the program, in multiple programs, not only here. So I think sometimes we are the ones who put those no's in our head. So I think it's just battling that imposter syndrome and battling that initial thought that you have of not being enough for them, and just trying it. Someone said it before, I don't remember. The worst thing that they can, I think it was Supper. The worst thing that they can say is no. So
I think I'm definitely going to emphasize the don't let imposter syndrome stop you from applying. But the thing I think that can be a good thing for taking some time, I didn't go straight from undergrad to grad school. And it was kind of 2 things. One, I knew about myself from previous things that I am not my best self when I'm applying to things, because it stresses me out beyond all belief. And so I'm struggling with that now with finishing the PhD and applying to jobs. But so I just wanted to finish my bachelor's degree, and I felt way more confident that I could do that if I wasn't applying to grad school at the same time. And then the other thing was that I didn't know exactly what I wanted to go to grad school in. In undergrad, there's often a chance to be like, I'm going to try out different majors before I choose one. Whereas in grad school, you're applying to a department. And I had done chemistry in undergrad. I thought I wanted to do some type of engineering for grad school, but I hadn't, a lot of them, I didn't really know what they were. And so I found myself a job where I could spend the time, like I could make money, support myself fine, but also that I could, I got a job at Purdue actually, so I could take classes in some of like post-bachelor classes to try out some different things. And that's not the only way you could do that. But if you just don't know what you want to go to grad school in yet, if there's something you can set up for yourself that's structured as a way to try out the different things you're considering, then that could be a really productive way to use the time. But if you know what you want to do and you just aren't sure that they're going to let you do it, don't make the decision for them. Go for it.
All right, do you have a follow-up there, Miriam? And then
Yeah, as a quick follow-up, if potentially we apply, you know, and get like rejections and stuff, is that going to affect the next time we're applying? Like, for example, is that going to weigh down our future application potentially?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I'd say in general, no, it doesn't have any impact. We have a lot of students that apply multiple times. Maybe the first time they're denied and then the second time they're admitted. Other times where they might be admitted the first time and they decline us, and they may go and, for example, do a master's at another university and then apply again here for a PhD and then come at that point. So they're really looked at as separate. Often the reviewers may or may not even know that you've applied before. Just kind of depends on how the admission committee is set up and if the same people are on the committee, if the same faculty are reviewing it. So they may not even know that you have that previous application, but if they do, it does not have any standing on what you've done. Did any of our mentors go through anything like that? Have any personal experience? Did you apply and not come apply again, apply more than once, anything like that?
Kinda. I applied to a place in undergrad and then didn't have the funds to go, so I applied again for master's. And then I once again didn't go, so I feel bad for that admissions committee. But they did let me in again, so that's something.
All right, and I know we're kind of watching the time here too, Lexi, but I want to get to Marco's question. If you kind of see it in the chat, he's got a question about balancing going for a PhD versus looking at an industry-focused job that is offering a good salary. Any of you want to speak to that in any of your experience?
I'll talk about it for a second. I was typing a reply, but this will be quicker. There's, you know, industry jobs are often still research-based jobs. It's just with different goals than your academic jobs. Many academic or research-based and industry-based jobs still want you to publish, still want you to attend conferences, still want you to grow in your research portfolio in that way. It's just not at an academic level. So if your fear is that you're gonna not do research because you're joining an industry-based job, that's often not the case. But I think the question would be specific to that job, and asking what the role would consist of, and if there are things that you don't want to give up in academia, you can advocate for that in your new job.
Yeah, I was gonna also add to that it also depends on what kind of role do you want to have, and also what is your intended goal, right? Because it's possible that doing research in industry may serve those goals that you have, or it's possible that going into school for some time, right, getting your PhD and then going to academia may serve those roles. So the thing that I have noticed is that usually in academia, right, you have more time to learn the skills that are needed to do certain kinds of research, right? Where in industry, you're kind of like expected to have some level of skills in order to be able to do that research. So if you feel like, you're ready for industry, and I would say go for it. Yeah.
I like to provide some insight into the industry. If you are on the fence on PhD or industry, one of the things you can consider is going into industry, because you can always come back and apply for a graduate program. So if you see that you are doing what you enjoy in a job that you accepted, you have the flexibility to do the research that you're interested in, and you're able to contribute, then if you're doing the same thing that you may be interested in doing in your PhD program, and you're getting paid significantly more to do it, then I would always go for I'm doing the same thing and getting paid significantly more to do what I wanted to do anyway. So it's just, what is that itch that you are interested in scratching? And sometimes you may have the opportunity to have collaborations with academic partners. So you're working in industry, you have collaboration with academic partners. So you're still engaging with graduate students, you're still engaging with professors. You're still able to talk about your research topic from both an academic and an industry level. So you have opportunities in some spaces to have essentially the best of both worlds, where you can have sort of the academic feel, but you can have the pay, the benefits, and the more freedom of being a working professional within that industry. So it's just some things to consider. But if you have a place where you can do where you're being offered the opportunity to do both, see what happens. And you can always apply to graduate school if you feel as though you're either being restricted or it wasn't what you anticipated or expected.
I think the only thing I'll add there is, your interest in the job itself, this first job that you're being offered. And if it's something that interests you, then that obviously makes it much more appealing. If it's something that really doesn't interest you and you'd be doing it only for the money, then I would kind of weigh that, because if you're doing something you don't enjoy, then no amount of money is going to kind of make up for that when you have another option to potentially do something you enjoy and get the money too. So I would definitely weigh that. And then long term, probably the biggest difference between industry and academia in terms of the research is your role in that research. And so in academia, you have a little bit more freedom to set your own direction and kind of identify what type of research you want to do. In industry, you're often working within some kind of defined area. And so whichever within that appeals to you, just kind of be aware of that. But like a lot of them said, if you start out in industry, spend a couple of years there, realize that's taking you down a track you don't want to go, you can always apply to grad school and come back and do that.
Thank you so much. So I'll just about wrap this up. I share my screen for a second. Okay. One second. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Not yet. It's not sharing.
All right. How about now?
It's thinking about it. Yep. We're good.
All right. So
your presenter view right now.
Oh.
I don't know if you've got a different screen.
I got that. Okay. I think this should be working now. Okay. How about now? See this okay?
Yeah, we see the, yep, now we see it.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So are we talking about the GradTrack trophy? I think we've been talking about this for the past couple of weeks, how you earn points by attending the monthly meetings, submitting your assignments, and attending the one-on-one meeting. So we've got one more week to go, so you can still schedule your one-on-one meeting with your mentors and mentees and get points towards the GradTrack trophy, and the mentors can report this with the Qualtrics links. So how do we calculate your scores? We find the average of each circle because we have different number of people in each circle. So we normalize the scores by the average of the number of people in each circle. And the circle with the highest score per person wins. So what do you get? You get something extra special at the end of the semester, and you have bragging rights. So who's currently topping the charts for this week? Drum roll, please. Circle 11 is currently winning though. So circle 11 is topping the charts, followed by circle 1 and then circle 8. So anybody can still win this, right? Still have one more week to go. You have assignments to submit and you have meetings to attend. So it's anybody can win at this point. So keep doing your assignments and attend the meetings and keep a record of that, and you might just win this trophy.
Got a question for you, Lex. I actually don't know the answer to this. The one-on-one meetings, is there a maximum number to those, or if they meet more than once, can they get additional points? Do you know?
Yes. So you have a maximum of 4 meetings per person. So a mentee can attend 4 times in the entire session, right? So that's it. All right. So for the next week, we're going to be having our final session. So these are the things you need to look out for. You submitted your resume and your essays for your mentors to review. So I suppose all your mentors should have reviewed and given feedback on your statement of purpose and your CV. So you want to revise them and take into consideration whatever comments they gave you, and then resubmit for them to review again, right? Before the next meeting. And then compile any questions you haven't had answered yet. So if you have questions that you need answers to, you need to compile that. And then finally, provide feedback. We need your feedback regarding the program. How has the experience been for you? And how do you think we can improve the program? So please fill out the survey. I'll be sending up a follow-up email. And I did send this link in the last email as well. So please fill out this end of program survey. And before the next meeting, please watch this video on how to transition from undergrad to grad school as well. For mentors, these are a few things that you need to note. Review your mentees' documents and provide feedbacks. Like I mentioned before, you need to review your mentees' submissions as well. Mentees, if your mentors have not responded to your submissions, poke them, ask them for your documents. Please, I need this reviewed. Thank you. And if you can't access Teams, if you can't send them on Teams, definitely send them an email or just poke them about it. For mentors as well, please take note of the one-on-one meetings. You need to meet your mentees. Every mentee in your circle, you need to meet them at least once before the end of the program. So please schedule one-on-one meetings with them. And finally, we have the Mentor Social on the 17th of November between 6 to 8 p.m. Please respond to Jackie's email if you haven't responded. So let us know if you will not be able to make it, but we would love to have every one of you there at the Bryant, right? So I would dismiss you into your different circles with the breakout rooms. So while in your breakout rooms, some of the questions you can ask, you can check the action pack on page 8. So these are some questions you can ask to keep the conversations going. Based on the topics we discussed today, your different mentors presented on them. So you can talk about them and ask questions, and yeah,